You are at war with yourself and likely don't realize it. Your thoughts, beliefs, habits, and actions often sabotage you. Are they helping you overcome adversity or setting you up for failure? To win this battle, you must connect with your inner warrior. We all have a warrior within us, one that strengthens our resolve and helps us to rise to meet life's challenges. If you're just surviving rather than thriving, then it's time to embrace the warrior archetype, live the warrior ethos, and ascend. If you are a veteran, first responder, or someone looking to take charge of your life, find your tribe, and then be the hero of your own story, this podcast is for you. Join Mike Kinney and Matt Hastings, two retired U.S. Army officers who served in U.S. Army Special Operations and Army Aviation units, as they share with you optimal performance practices they learned in their time with the Military and Warriors Ascent, a 501c3 nonprofit that helps veterans and warriors with PTS.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Warriors Ascent podcast with your two hosts, Mike and Matt. And today we're going to talk about healing and tending the mind. We had a previous episode that discussed that with one rubric, borrowing from Daniel Kahneman's Thinking Fast and Slow, so System 1 and System 2. And today we'll talk more about cognitive behavioral therapy and the CBT triangle, thoughts, emotions, and actions. So let me start with this. Have any of you had an instance where, you're triggered by, could be a thought, a stimulus, something that someone does to you, and
Yes,
maybe you take it to the extreme. You're like, oh my God, why is it that I reacted so viscerally? So I'll give you an example. Here's a great anecdote of, I'll say, the power of this rubric. This is very important. So you're in an elevator, right? In a skyscraper, 50 floors you're going up. So you walk into this elevator and you've got a bunch of people behind you. You really don't take notice of who's in that elevator with you. But you turn, you face the door, and for 50 floors, you're being poked and prodded the entire time. And in your mind, you're formulating what you're going to say to this dude, why he's poking you and, agitating you. So 50th floor comes, the door's open, you get out, you turn around, and you want to see what this guy, what he looks like. And it ends up being a blind man with a cane, right? So what happens to your disposition at that moment? Yeah, I would hazard a guess.
Change, right? You go from to
being completely disarmed.
Yeah,
you're like, oh my God, I feel horrible. This poor old man.
Yeah.
He's just trying to see who else is in the elevator with him, or whether or not he's alone or whatever. So you're completely disarmed. Your disposition, your reaction completely changed, right? Your emotional state, for that matter.
You're a robot.
Exactly. An automaton, an emotionless automaton. No, but so let me ask you, did the stimulus change at all?
No.
Not one bit. It's your response, right? The thoughts that surrounded that stimulus. So that's what this model is about. And that's the power of this. And really, it can help you, I'll say, step in between stimulus and response. So explaining it ever so briefly, and then we can go into some anecdotes. So really, the contention is that your thoughts drive your emotions, which drive your actions predominantly. Right. And as you can see with the two-way arrows, does it go the other way as well? I mean, can your emotional state drive your thoughts? Certainly. There are instances where, you're just not feeling well, or you might be sick, as an example. You may have gotten hurt, you broke your arm, and that affects your thoughts, like, oh my God, how could this happen to me?
Yeah.
Actions similarly, can you take action that then affects your emotional state or even your thoughts about yourself? Absolutely. There are times when it's just like, I'm just going to show up, for those that are, I'll say, the weightlifters out there, right? Joe Weider, right? His number one rule, right? Show up. Number two was squat deep, right? So when he was working with Arnold Schwarzenegger. No, but there's real genius in that, because what he's saying in essence is show up, right? Honor that commitment to yourself. Take action. And once you're at the gym, Now you're like, all right, I didn't feel like coming, but I honored my commitment. I took action. And in the end, you're like, I feel pretty good now because now I've taken action. I've shown that I can honor commitments to myself, that I have discipline. So your emotional state elevates, right?
That's
Your
right.
thoughts about yourself similarly. Now you're re-ingraining, in your mind, this notion that no, I'm a person of action. I'm a person of discipline who honors, his or her commitments.
I
That's
mean, and this
important.
can be done to scale. This could be for someone who's really in a depression state. It could be just taking a shower that day. It could be, you can scale this up to exactly what you said. Like, I think one of the hardest things you can do is show up to Warriors Ascent, for instance, if you've signed up. We have no problem signing people up. We have a problem with people showing up because the commitment to yourself is probably one of the hardest that you'll make, right?
That's it. Is honor those commitments to yourself. That's important. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So thoughts. Really, what we want to drive home today is that your thoughts drive your emotions and drive your actions. So I'll say in a similar vein to our previous discussion on System 1 and System 2, and just as a refresher and a reminder, System 1 are your automatic thoughts, habits, routines, intuition. System
Autopilot.
2, exactly, autopilot. System 2, deliberate thoughts, intentional, et cetera. But bottom line, those thoughts, whether they be automatic, whether they be deliberate, whatever it might be, in large measure, drive your emotional state.
Absolutely.
Right. So again, whether they are automatic thoughts, maybe even limiting beliefs, that's a big one. These ingrained systems of belief, some of which maybe stem from childhood. Hey, I'm not good enough. I've never been good at math. I'm not a good athlete. I'm not worthy, whatever it might be. These are all thoughts that, begin to tell a story, to yourself,
Right.
that's your personal narrative. And then you follow that, into adulthood.
And then you just prove yourself right.
Right. And no, exactly. It ties into your emotional state. And then consequently, I'll say impacts actions. So as an example, so if your thoughts are, hey, I'm not a good athlete, I'm just not very athletic, or whatever it might be, right? Your emotions are like, why bother? Why bother? I'm not good enough. I'm just going to get beat. I'm not going to get selected. I'm not going to be chosen. You're not going to have that growth mindset. You're going to have a fixed mindset, borrowing from Carol Dweck's mindset, to where you're like, well, why even bother? I'm just not a good athlete. So then how does that impact your actions?
Well, you're never going to be a better athlete. You're never going to be participating in things that might be fun,
right?
Bring you out of, some dark spots with other people, social. I mean, there's all kinds of ramifications for not trying. I know I did this. I don't know if you do. Is like, I don't like the things I'm not good at. And so I don't want to do them, instead of having that mindset of, man, I ought to try some of this stuff, and I think that's how I found yoga to be effective for me. Because I was like, I wasn't going to try that before.
Yeah.
And now it's like, wow, that was dumb because it's really helpful. Meditation, things like that.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely.
But it was a thought, that a couple of them was, I thought yoga was for women, so I can't go to yoga. I'm not going to wear those tight pants. And
Right.
I would look splendid in them, but I don't think anybody else wants
So let
to
me
see
ask
this.
you. So that was your thought, right?
Right.
So when you came to Warriors Ascent and Kerry, who's our yoga instructor,
Yeah.
when he's like, namaste, my brothers, you're all going to do yoga. Your thoughts were like, who is this hippie?
Who's
right?
this dude
Number
with no
one,
shoes on?
Anybody's an Air Force guy, Gulf War vet.
Yeah.
So, a great dude
Yeah.
and a warrior in his own right. I mean, he deals with all sorts of physical ailments, but he shows up, he does his own work, and he's got the greatest attitude of anybody that I know. But at first you don't know that. And you're like, who is this hippie telling me to do yoga? Right. So then let me ask you about your emotional state. What were you thinking? What were your feelings at that point?
Well, I was like, no one else has ever got me to do yoga. What makes this guy think he's going to get me on the floor and do some yoga? And I looked around in the room, saw these other big dudes, some of them probably hadn't touched their toes in a while. I'm not saying I'm super flexible or don't have a big belly or anything. But I mean, this guy was just like, I accept you. I love you. I'm like, you don't know me. How could you love me and accept me? But you come to find out that guy is a special human that really does love you and accept you the minute you walk in there. And some of the harshest critics I saw, there was a guy, I won't say his name, but he was in my cohort, which I'm about a year. The cohort that's 1 year anniversary for me starts on Monday for you guys. So 1 year out and still in touch with some of these guys. But I remember this guy was like, he just looked around the room and he pointed to each one of us and said, I hate you. I hate you. I'm not going to talk to you. And he just told us all that, leave me alone. By the end, that guy is probably the biggest hugger and the lover of Carrie, our guru, because that guy knew how to change our thoughts into different, actions and emotions. Like, I don't know how he did it, but he's just got the right cool attitude. Made me in particular, and I'm going to speak for everybody else because there's a lot of grumbling about getting down on the floor. But I remember one of the guys bought mats for every one of his kids and his family, and they're all doing yoga every night or yoga nidra before bedtime. And I mean, so, changing some of these habits and just introducing a new thought pattern and just the way it changes your emotions, it was fabulous for me.
Yeah, no. So using that, I'll say that framework, so thoughts coming in, especially for a lot of the alpha guys, alpha males, CW4 aviator, Marine Scout sniper, we've got SWAT guys, a whole bunch, the thoughts are, I'm not doing that. That's for gals. That's for hippies. And I see no value in it. The emotion is whether it be agitation or obstinate, whatever, being stubborn or, being outright angry. Like, what is this? And then the actions, if there weren't an intervention, would have been like, I'm not doing this. They throw their hands up. But, what we said is that, getting back to, the thoughts, it's like, trust the process.
Right.
This will in fact actually make you a better warrior, just like meditation. So don't think of it as something for, hippies and hey, only gals do this. And I'm a dude, I'm a manly dude.
Yeah. And it's a silly, look at myself and go, man, that was really dumb. But it's all about growth and progress and busting past stigmas. If you've, I think we alphas created our own stigma there, looking to be that machismo. And I think what we're finding out, is that there's a lot more to it. It's pretty tough, and it takes a lot of guts to seek help. And we were talking about this even earlier when it comes to our physical abilities in our 50s. We had this long conversation, and I'm like, man, I've been lifting weights, but it's really embarrassing how little I lift on purpose, because I know that I will hurt myself. I'm 100% fact. If I do any more, I will hurt myself. So I have to rethink my thoughts and my emotions to say, I'm doing this to build strength, build my core. Then I'll get, more if that happens, if I'm allowed to do that. Otherwise, I'll just be happy with what I'm doing.
Right.
And you're out there training for another damn marathon.
Half.
So might as well be, an ultra marathon in my mind, because still that's at 53. That's amazing, Mike. But I know you were explaining to me how you were looking at your watch and your splits are off. And
so again, trying to keep maybe with this rubric is, I was saying to my wife, it's just like, man, I used to be able to run at a certain pace, certain level of exertion, with the whole wearable, right? And lamenting that, what happened to that guy, so my thoughts are a certain level of expectation. Like, I should be able to execute at this level. The emotions that come from that, I'll say disappointment. Cause I'm like, what happened to the guy that could do this or that, and then actions, you end up being like, oh man, why even bother?
Or hurting yourself, or
right, no, or doing too much, But then my wife would point out, she's like, "Hey, it's okay, it's you're not a young guy anymore. and that's perfectly fine. So kind of retool your thoughts in terms of, expectations, we'll say.
Right.
Then I'll say emotionally, you're like, all right, let me reframe that. And rather than focus on maybe not being at the level that I was, focus on the fact that, hey, at least, I can still execute and do some good things, and then actions that come from that are, I'll say a sense of gratitude and commitment and a growth mindset.
Right.
In terms of, well, if I can get better, a little better tomorrow, than I was today, then that's a win, and not so much focus on what I used to be able to do or the fact that dude is gone forever, but really maintain focus on, hey, I have the ability to do, what it is that I can
Whatever
do,
I
and
can
I
do,
can
yeah.
pursue that growth, and things are good. No, so let's have other examples. Let's say, the one that afflicts so many people, road rage. I know you and we talked about that earlier. So somebody cuts you off, or somebody's on the phone, texting while you're driving and swerves into your lane. I'm sure all of us have been like, oh my God, I want to strangle this person, and then maybe you're flipping them the bird, road rage, or even at the low end, you're just getting really annoyed to the point where you're cursing, and
your passengers are like, geez.
And they're like, oh my God, dad's losing it. What the heck, So, we talked about contingencies and alternate thoughts. So let's break it out using this, this triangle. So your thoughts are, somebody cuts you off. What are your initial thoughts?
That guy, he's got something against me. And I don't know what he wants from me, but
or he's more important than
he
you.
Thinks he's bigger
or
and better than
care.
me.
He's like, hey, you're inconsequential.
He doesn't have to follow the rules. Yeah,
right.
All these things are going through my mind, and
right.
I can just feel the emotions stack coming up.
Right. So then, as a consequence, your emotions are, hey, screw that guy. I'm, who
I'm gonna
does
get
that
right
guy?
on his tail. I'm gonna do something.
Exactly. And then your actions are exactly that. You get right on his tail, you flip him off, you pull up alongside him, you're
Roll
screaming,
down,
your kid's in the back going, oh my God, the old man's lost his marbles.
Right.
Your wife's like, who's this crazy man? Right? No, exactly. So that's how this kind of works. One of the other things, that we'll teach at Warriors Ascent is we'll use what they call the daily thought record, which in essence takes this and makes it very formulaic.
Yeah.
So it lays out, the date, time, group. Okay, hey, when did the incident happen, or the feeling, right? And it talks about, okay, what are your thoughts at that point, right? What are your thoughts? What are you thinking? What are you feeling, right? What's the action that you took? And more often than not, what I'll say precipitates this level of intervention is a suboptimal coping mechanism, right? Or action, wherein somebody's flipping somebody off, yelling, screaming, and you're like, I need to get to the bottom of this and make some changes.
Right.
So then the technique with the daily thought record is, what's an alternate thought? So let's talk about that. I'll throw you under the bus. So Matt, what alternate thought?
Some of my new things are like, well, I'm gonna, this term I learned called grace. It's not just the thing you do before you shout out.
What is this grace thing you speak of?
But, it's like, hey, maybe that person is in a real hurry because, their kid's at home alone and they got to get there. I don't know what's going on in this person's life. So I'm just going to assume that they don't know me. They're not doing anything against me. I wish they would drive a little more carefully and understand that they, bring risk to others. But the thing is like, I can't get in their head and assume they're doing something to me. That seems odd. If you diagnose that later,
right,
and say like, that shouldn't be a front to me. And if it only takes me an extra 10 seconds to get somewhere, like what's the value? What's the return on that investment of getting so upset? And I've put out this energy to have all these emotions that cause me this physical toll, and then. Like if I'm with people, they're going to react to me. Now I have to play this game where I'm saying, I'm having to come up with why I did what I did and how and then I feel remorse, and it's all bad. It's all bad outcome. And it's just easier to say like, geez, that person may need me to just back off a little bit.
Yeah. You know, what the saying goes, hey, give people grace because everyone's fighting a battle that you know nothing about. You know,
Right.
you never know what they're going through. And let's be honest, there are times when, you know, deep down, that ain't it. You know, or
Yeah,
not that
I
you
mean,
could possibly know, but they're just being
you can
inconsiderate.
see it. That's a
But
teenager.
the fact of the matter
you know.
is, you know, can you do anything about it?
No.
Yeah, and I think
That's the point.
I want to say it's one of the Stoic philosophers. I'm not sure. I think it was Epictetus, if I'm not mistaken, said being angry and holding a grudge against somebody is the equivalent of you drinking poison and thinking that it's going to hurt them.
Really is.
Yeah.
I mean, that was one of the things that getting rid of, like, if you have something you're harboring against somebody, you know, and of course, I think I don't know, I'm gonna speak for everybody. I know I have several, and just kind of releasing some of that is huge weight off your chest, you know.
Right.
And
Right.
I would have thought, nah, some of those people are reserved to me, just to dislike them forever, and it's like,
Right.
it's just poisoning.
Well, I mean, then there's that concept of forgiveness as well. And a lot of people, myself included, I'll get wrapped around that. It's like, no, there's some people that have done me wrong, and I am.
It's gonna be hard to forgive them.
Forgiving is kind of hard, but you know, people, I'll say the
You can
more
let it
enlightened
go.
will point out that the forgiveness is really for you.
Yes.
You know, that not that you're going to be like, all right, hey, no harm, no foul. You completely abused me or betrayed me or screwed me over or whatever. And hey, that's cool. That ain't it. What it is you're like, hey, listen, I'm so angst ridden over this. I'm no longer going to give you power and dominion over my mental state. So I'm going to forgive, you know, and there it is. And it's really an attempt to just say, I'm going to move past this for my own good.
I always
just let that
learned some of the stuff I've learned through getting to where I'm at, and I think I'm always going to be a student of this. But was that, you know, I forgot what I was going to say. That's not good.
No big deal. No big deal. It happens to me too. It's
Yeah.
that old. It's that over 50 disease, man.
Yeah,
So
it
who
is.
you're talking about? No, so I mean, just to wrap up, and again, make it relevant, you know, to those that are listening. Like practical application, action steps. So thoughts drive emotions, drive actions. So what I'll say to people is this: if you do a root cause analysis, right, and say, okay, I took an inappropriate action, and I want to remedy it, but where did that stem from? You know, more often than not, you can walk it back to your emotional state. Well, I was hurt, I was angry, I was fearful, I was scared, whatever it might be, and you're like, all right, we're getting closer. We're getting closer. What are the thoughts then that really underpin that emotional state? And more often than not, you can walk it back to a thought or a limiting belief, and we won't get into all the details here, but a cognitive distortion. Right. So all or nothing thinking, you know, catastrophizing. There's a variety of cognitive distortions that afflict people. That, you know, for those that feel so compelled, can look it up online, and they're very informative. But bottom line is things that impact your thoughts and your thinking, which results in an adverse emotional state and adverse actions. Yeah.
Is that that thought oftentimes gets projected. I know I do this, and I've learned I do this, is that I project onto that person what I'm feeling, and I think that they truly are feeling that. And then all the evidence continues to support I'm right. And then later you let's say you confronted the person and you talk about it, and they're like, that isn't at all what was going on. So like, I've discovered that I project my thoughts, which causes emotions. And then it causes me to have these actions where I'm going to say things or do things. And then it's like, a lot of the times it's a miscommunication, you know, or because I've projected. And so back to the grace, back to the learning to accept that maybe your internal thoughts aren't driving everybody around you, you know.
It could be thoughts or expectations. I think we talked about that before, is there's certain expectations that you might levy on people where, hey, doing your work in the military as an aviator, where you've got the lives of your crew and passengers at stake. That's a no-fail mission. So your thoughts are, I need to do everything perfectly. I need to be on time. I need this, I need that. And what we've come to realize is those thoughts drive your emotions, right? Which are, if you're not meeting those standards, you are screwed up. And I'm going to jump in your stuff,
right.
And that's the action. Okay, now I'm going to skin you, up and down, boom, boom. When in fact, those thoughts, right? Those expectations maybe are unrealistic because you're no longer in that situation. And not everyone can or should be held to that same standard.
Right. And I think the other thing is that we get to know is that people can rise to that occasion. If you hold people accountable, they can rise up, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you should require your 10-year-old to rise up to the standard of a sergeant in the army or something.
Reasonable expectations.
Reasonable expectations.
Reasonable expectations.
I mean, we should always think, that somebody could be, try to get a higher goal, I guess, and believe in yourself.
Yeah. Yep. Growth mindset, growth mindset. Can always be better, but don't beat yourself up.
Even at 53, Mike, I keep learning.
That's true.
And it's just new stuff. And it's all stuff that, again, like to apply all this stuff somehow. And again, that's why I really liked Warriors Ascent. Helped me with my application to things. And I really enjoyed discussing how to use metacognitive thinkings. How do we think about our thinking and breaking it down into all these different elements that we've been talking about lately.
I think that framework is formative. And I think understanding how it is your mind works is absolutely integral to healing, because if you don't understand, I'll say, the processes that underpin your thoughts, your emotions, and actions, you're going to be hard pressed to remedy
I know
and
how a
address
turbine
those
engine
things.
works, so why shouldn't I know how my brain works in the way I think?
That's right.
It should help me in an emergency situation with my engine. It's going to help me in an emergency situation with my brain, my body, my actions.
That's a great metaphor, my friend. Appreciate it. All right.
Mike, what do you think? Have all these people at the end of this, maybe we should ask them to hit like and share. Please. And help us grow our podcast. Because
that goes without saying. Yes,
right.
Please. So hit like, social media, share, you name it, all of it. I mean, if this is helpful, which we hope it is, relevant and germane, please share it. Friends, family, you name it. Appreciate you all, and we will see you in the next episode.
Hi, Matt Hastings here, sending a thank you for watching this episode of the Warriors Ascent podcast. We strive to build a community of warriors made up of our nation's veterans and first responders. And to reach as many of those in need as possible, we need your help. Please just smash that like button and comment or share our content. Warriors Ascent is a Kansas City-based nonprofit that aids veterans and first responders with PTS. I went through this effective program and want those that are struggling to find what I found. Check us out on our website at warriorsascent.org.